have Scott Snofke join us today from REI Print Mail. Scott, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Kai. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. So yeah, just to get started, for people who may not know you, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Scott Snofke. I'm a direct marketing coach with REI Print Mail. Simply just help people build custom direct mail campaigns, help them find their data, all of that fun stuff, and help generate that inbound lead flow. So it's kind of real quick about me.
That's awesome. So perfect. Yeah. So just to get started, I figured we'd get in direct mail marketing. I know you guys are doing a whole bunch of other cool things over there too. But on the coaching side, when do you think the right time is for people to start with direct mail, and what are some of the mistakes you see people making when they're doing it on their own?
So, a good time to start with direct mail is depending on where your budget's at. Because we don't want to overextend it and put you between a rock and a hard place where, you get stuck in that situation where you're not able to continue with it. Because direct mail is about being consistent. Consistency is king in it. So with us is, usually if you have a question about it, that's why we're here is we're direct marketing coaches. We will start you from the beginning and then work and build a custom plan inside of that, whether it's finding you good data and we get it skip traced and we enter into a cold calling and then we build up to those deals and then start stacking those wins. Does that make sense?
It does, 100%. That's awesome. So I know a lot of people, it's like when they're first starting, they're like might try to do it on their own or just send some mail out. What's the what are some of the mistakes you see people make, and what can they do to improve that?
Yeah, oftentimes, and I'll hear this consistently. And once again, that's why we brought the free coaching up to teach you how to, simply get the best performance out of it. And what that looks like is, or the mistakes that people commonly make are trying to do it themselves and, using a wrong postage stamp, spending way too much time thinking that they can do it better. But oftentimes they're using an older piece that's not generating, or they're not following up to know what their call response is. So, a big thing is to use a tracking number so you know what your call response is, what you're getting out of it, and you can figure out how much your cost per call, cost per lead, and all of that is.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And then when you say a tracking number, is that like a dedicated phone number?
Yeah. So, like, you want to test things so you know if they're working or not. And we do it constantly. We follow up with our customers to say, hey, how many calls did you get? And that's a base model call response of, get off my grass, stop mailing me, stuff like that, all the way to, hey, I do want to sell my house. And that's what it is. But that's a simple number. We try to look into the science behind the deal so we know how many pieces it sends to generate this many calls. Typically, this many calls will generate this many deals. So we can do the math on it and continue to find success in that area.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. So what? Yeah, I know I've seen some of the mailers you guys are doing, and we're getting ready to get a batch going out here pretty soon. Do you kind of want to explain what you guys are doing with the soft offer letters, or what other letters are working the best for you guys?
Yeah, I mean it's so we were the first to get the the cease and desist from Google. We're the first one to take the Google Street View and use it. And that's the thing about direct mail is everybody just assumes that they take every letter straight to their house, they read every one of them. That's not the case. The majority of people, we all do it. We go straight to the trash can, we throw everything away that is not of interest or hidden, so we know that it's anything that's marketing mail. We don't need gutters, windows, stuff like that. Boom, trash. So we have to hide ourselves to get past the trash or be read before we get to the trash. Well, postcards are that they're read before they go to the trash if they pique that interest. But the Google Street View was 7, 8 years ago. It went into the handwritten fonts. The handwritten fonts did really well for a long time, and then now we found the best success with what you mentioned, our soft offer check. And very simply, what it does is name and address on a check. They're going to open it 98% of the time. Nobody throws a check away without investigating it. And then in doing that, we're able to manipulate the money field on that check per address that we mail out. So now psychologically, we've already initiated in negotiations. So by doing that, anybody, I think what's it, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 people are living paycheck to paycheck. So in doing that, we're setting that down there in front of them as an actual number. Mentally, they've already started to spend that. So if we can get that number correct to generate that inbound call, that's getting into that negotiations already. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it definitely makes sense. I mean, if they're not going to look at it and just throw it in the trash, it's kind of a waste of money. So I know
Right.
you mentioned the cease and desist. So what happened with that? Was that for sending the Google Maps?
So basically, Google wanted to be paid. I mean, we were taking their photos, 7, 8 years ago, and putting it in, Google Street View, Google Satellite Imaging on the pic. Everybody
Mhm.
got the postcard at some point, either pink or yellow or something like that. Everybody was sending them 7, 8, 9 years ago, and Google just reached out to us and with a letter from their lawyers to knock it off or.
Yeah,
And so yeah, we kind of wear that with a badge of honor, and we're always sitting there to analyze and think about what is coming out of the mailbox, what kind of response is it going to generate, how are we going to motivate people to create that call, and what's going to be next, whether it's going to be better data, the next better mail piece, it's going to be a set of catchwords. So we're constantly setting stuff out on in our break room or on table in the conference room, and say everybody kind of walks through and looks at them. We write notes and how it moves us, how it makes us feel. And then we bring our own mail in from our houses. We're like, oh my God, I got this. If we do this and this and this. So we're constantly creating new pieces to generate that response.
that's awesome. So how would you compare like direct mail to like other forms of marketing, like maybe like digital marketing or like, Google PPC or Facebook ads?
It's direct mail is one of the older ones. It's stood the test of time. It's one of the more consistent ones. So if everybody sees the billboards going down the highway, they're there, whether they catch their attention or not. Well, all we do is we take that billboard from the highway and stick it in their mailbox. So we can, through a good data set, we can target the individuals that we want to, sort of along the lines of like PPC can do that pretty well. But all we're doing is taking one piece, putting it directly into their hands. I think it's 75, 80% of people still believe more of what they read and see in their hands, because a lot of the people we're targeting, they still have a reading lamp and that next to their chair. Some of them are
Hmm.
still getting the newspaper. So it's targeting that person, and it's easier to break that trust barrier than what they see on the internet, what they hear on the radio, what they see on TV. There's still a trust issue with some of that stuff, whether they're in the United States or whether they are, a local company, or whether they're there to scam them. So
Right. No, it definitely makes sense. So yes, I know we kind of talked about the mailers. Are there any other mistakes or like anything like what are like people when you're coaching people, what are some of the biggest things you help them with?
usually it's quantity.
Hmm.
People think that that if they send out 200, they're going to get 200 phone calls, and that's not the case. That the industry standard is a 0.5% for direct mail. So if we send out 1,000, it's only 5 phone calls.
Hmm.
We want to generate good quality phone calls. Now, that's why we track what we send, so we know what the response rates are, so we can tell you what that's going to be in that area with that mail piece. And typically, we're finding anywhere from a 0.87 in competitive areas, almost double the industry standard with that soft offer check or soft offer pieces, and all the way up to I've generated a 2, a 3, a 4% response rate in some areas, but we don't like to really talk about those as much. It's more like when we get into the coaching aspect of it, it's we want to talk baseline.
Hmm.
We want to under promise, over produce. And in doing that, we can know that we can do these numbers almost every time. If we continually come above those numbers, then we can celebrate that. And then we can sit down and discuss what that inbound call flow is even going to be like. Like a check response is going to be different than a postcard response, is going to be different than a probate letter response. Every type of response coming in is going to have a different kind of conversation.
Nice. That makes a lot of sense. So do you find it's better to like the like sniper rifle approach or like more targeted list, or is it better to and then keep hitting those people multiple times, or is it better to go more broad when someone's starting out?
It all depends on the budget, honestly, and kind of what type of properties you're after, what your niche lists are. Because I mean, we have a specific list that is a very broad range. It works really well for people doing virtual, which is like a highly likely to sell. And highly likely to sell is expired MLS listing, vacant property, and it is the owner currently lives out of state. They moved because of work or for whatever reason. Somebody passed away and they tried to sell it, they couldn't. So you're only going to get, say, all of Dallas County, huge market. You might get 175 of those properties in there. Great cold call list, also a great direct mail list to generate a really good response rate on. So it's, in targeting that stuff, it just, if you do a fine tuned brush, make sure that it's a really good quality response, that they're highly motivated. If you're going to do the broad brush, you're going to need that bigger budget, but you're also going to find the little pockets out in there that other people are missing. Because one of the biggest mistakes about data is we jump on, say, pre-foreclosure. Everybody knows that. Probate. People are highly targeting those, and if they niche down, they're all niching into the same thing, so all the competition is in that same little window. If we can get just outside of that window, we're going to find a better response rate.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. So is it like when you're going broad and you kind of find that niche and you start to like focus on that one, it's more of a blue ocean?
Yeah, and one of the things to do also is, if you go broad with your very first one, in a new area, if you're not as familiar with it, you can pin 4, 5, 6 different tracking numbers in there on the different styles of lists that you're hitting. And then you go back and see, it's like, okay, I had on my pre-probate list that was in there, I had 46 phone calls on. I only had 5 phone calls based off of this amount of information on, the pre-foreclosure list, or whichever list that you're populating there. We can actually track it with multiple numbers, so what's kind of in that area. It's kind of like mining for gold. You go and you dig holes, sample holes, to see where the gold's kind of added in there.
That's super cool. Now, I know you guys also have the other solutions that people are doing really well with. So you have like the call center too. So like, how can you explain how that works?
Yeah, we have, so as we've grown and scaled our business, we have people that scale their budgets, and in scaling their budget, we create more inbound phone calls. They get overwhelmed, and as we've built trust with most of our customers, they reach out to us and say, hey, who do you trust to do this stuff? So we went and bought REI Vault last year. We've been working really hard to get their thought process and our thought process to integrate together, so we can work as a direct marketing coach, and it's a done for you service. So what REI Complete can do is it handles and screens all of your inbound calls. And with screening your inbound calls, it will qualify your lead. So when that lead comes in, they'll leave a voicemail. They will read the notes of the voicemail. They will call them back, walk them through a questionnaire, and then rank that lead with their notes and set it as a qualified lead: hot, warm, neutral, cold. And then anything that is not qualified, they don't just throw it away on the cutting room floor. It is put into a follow-up bucket where it'll be touched 75 to 150 times over the next 2 years, and try to bring it back into there. And then it's all placed into a CRM built for investors by investors. So, it's got a good flow to it. And I'm a math guy. I love the KPIs. So I can look into one of my customers' accounts and say, okay, I sent out 1,800 pieces of mail. We got 24 responses. Of the 24 responses, I can go to another page and look how many of those 24 were qualified leads. That's 18. And go, okay, we got a really good, call response on this. We're going to continue to do this. And then at the end of it, it'll even show you, once you plug your deals through, what your cost per deal is, what your cost per lead is, what your cost per phone call is. It tells you everything real quick at the click of a button.
Oh, that's huge.
It's a game changer, because $9 an hour, it's like hiring a secretary at the front of the office. She does all your follow-up, she screens all your calls coming in, and she does all your KPIs for $9 an hour for a 40-hour work week.
Oh, that's badass. Yeah, I think that's huge. I feel like a lot of people fall short of the KPIs. Being able to see that and knowing where your money's going is huge.
Right. And a lot of people are just blind in that aspect. That they're like, oh yeah, I got so many calls. Well, how many of those turned into deals? I don't, I did 2 deals last month. Well, what campaigns? It's, nobody really tracks it, to all the way down to the cost per call. And it's so quick to go and look at something and go, okay, here, this is going good. Let's repeat it. And I do it with my customers all the time. I'm like, hey, this isn't working. We've got a bad call response on this piece in this area. So we're going to take that money away from that and stop wasting money. And let's go put it over here where we know it's working for you.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I want to switch gears a bit and kind of talk about data. So I know you guys also have your own data solution as well. You want to kind of run through the data solution real quick, and we'll kind of talk about tips and things that
Yeah,
people can use
so
for?
REI Smart Data, we bought that from Kent Clothier last year as we were, growing the business, and we, ultimately we all know best data, best mail, best data period is going to, generate the best response rate. So we see that that's one of the ways that, people are going to improve on their system. So we wanted to get a hold of a company. We went and bought one last year. Actually, we bought two and we integrated it, just kind of absorbed the other one. And what it is it gets us behind the scenes, and we didn't realize how cool that was until we got behind the scenes to see exactly how filters work. You just think, oh, let's eliminate years of ownership, and what does that do? It gets rid of the years of ownership, but there's hidden pockets of little data in there that it also eliminated that people were untargeting. Whether a big thing to think about in data is who put the data in there. When was it created? Was it created in 1960? That means it's on paper. Then it had to be converted to real data in the 80s and 90s. Well, that guy was or girl was not probably getting paid that much. So whether they inputted it correctly or not, there's going to be zeros in there. That's why you see unknown filters. You want to grab that unknown.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's huge. I feel like that's definitely a big piece a lot of people are missing. And yeah, I know I've done some texts and calls to some unknown data since we talked about that. I mean, yeah, having
Yeah.
a lot of success, getting a lot more contacts. So
Yeah, and it's good. Like one of the things with us in the free coaching, highly recommend. You can catch me at scott.reiprintmail.com. Jump on a coaching call with it. We give the data away the majority of the time. Data, there's people out there charging $2, 3, $4,000 a county per month, and it's high end ranked AI learned data, lots of bells and whistles to it. But getting started, why not just go get that, that prop stream data? Oh, wait, that pulls from First American. So does REI Smart Data. So does Batch Lead. They all pull from the exact same thing. It's just the quality of their filters that are in place. But for the most part, you're left to your own knowledge on those filters. Why not just come over to us? We'll book a Zoom call. I'll teach you how to pull data. We'll give it to you for free first couple times. Sign up for the subscription also. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah, they've done it for us, and yeah, it's been super helpful. And I think that's the funniest thing is everyone said die hard, one system or another, and a lot of them are
right,
just pulling from the same stuff. Same with skip tracing,
yeah.
it's all the same shit, and everyone's like, no, this one's the
Right.
best one.
I mean, First American basically has the one major silo. CoreLogic's out there also, and
Mhm.
they're it's the sometimes it comes down to the quality of the list and what you're looking for. Somebody's better at something than others. Then sometimes you need to have multiple subscriptions to run
Mhm.
comps or to find an individual property. Everybody has their niche things that they're really good at. So you need to hone in on you're really good at and continue down that road of success, and then find the tools that work best for that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. So what are some of the lists? If someone's brand new, not starting, they're talking with you, what kind of, what direction would you direct them? Do you think they'd have the most success with?
Currently right now it's, the tired landlords, the absentee vacant owners, depending on what your budget is and what market you're in. Highly recommend, to have the conversation to get your market analyzed. But, say I'm in the St. Louis market. So if I come in here, we have a really good, rental portfolios in here. There are a lot of people holding properties, but there's a lot of people in those rental portfolios that started and they're buying up everything they could right away. Well, now they have in their portfolio, they have 4 or 5 properties that they really don't want anymore. It doesn't fit what they've niched themselves into. So those are good targets that you can hit. You can hit one person or get a hold of them and say, hey, what else do you have? Is there anything else that you want to get rid of? And you can help them disposition that, and especially small portfolios coming out of COVID. People started to get into real estate, and then COVID hit them. The government took care of the tenants more than they took care of the property owner. And so at that point, those people are looking to disposition their whole portfolios. Of course, vacants, always that's a secondary property that nobody's making money on currently. Might want to just go ahead and get rid of it. Easy money, stepping into potential recession. Somebody might want to liquidate one. The absentee, the vacant, the tired landlord lists work really well. Owner occupieds are starting to gain traction. We've run several tests lately that are showing us that we're getting a good call response on it. I've yet to see some of the deal flow on it. So, but we're watching it very closely. And then there's always subject to,
Mhm.
that thing's taken off. So that 0 to 25% equity where people don't think that they can sell their house because they're upside down. They don't necessarily understand it. That's a good list. If you're able to, manipulate contracts subject to whatever terms, that's a really good list for that.
Now for the subject two, do you guys have like a separate mailer that you send for the subject two ones if you're targeting that?
Typically, we're just targeting the response.
Hmm.
Usually it's a soft offer check, and what the
Hmm.
soft offer check simply does is it gets away from the low ball assumption. It puts a number out there, that gets them to raise an eyebrow, and by getting them to raise an eyebrow, it generates that call because every other piece of mail, everybody else that we buy ugly houses, we buy distressed properties. I want to buy your house. It's no different than when somebody would walk up to your front door and say, "Hey, I want to buy your house," at your front door knocking. You're automatically, your guard is up and you think they're going to lowball you. The check kind of gets away from that a little bit and puts that fastball kind of right down the middle. And what that's doing is, it's like, well, they think they can negotiate up, but we took the lowball assumption away. We put that their house is in good standing condition back on them. So when that call comes in, it's like, hey, yeah, that's what I'm typically buying a property for in your area. That's ready to sell. Does that describe your house? And then you get them talking about your house, and then you get them talking about what's going on, where their problems at, why did they call, what's their thought process. And I don't know if you're familiar with today's market. You don't have to sell on the MLS anymore. There's people that'll come in and buy it as is. Whereas there's somebody that'll come in and utilize your mortgage as a buying tool that you can actually sell your mortgage now, and it's subject to these terms, and let me teach you how to do that. So it's that soft approach. You come in, sit down with them and say, hey, let me teach you about the real estate industry that 90% of us grew up selling through a realtor and a bank. Nobody, this is a new to a lot of people. And if they're not following the market, like, most of the people that are going to be watching this, they don't know. And we put that assumption on them that they actually know. And we need to
Mm.
educate them on other ways that they can trade their house in the same as they trade their car in. You take it to the dealership expecting to get less.
Mm. I think it's a great analogy. Yeah, I feel like something I struggle with and a lot of people struggle with is, when you know something, you just assume everybody else knows it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's definitely not the case. And
Yes. It's no different than talking to your wife. You
mhm,
assume that they don't think the same.
mhm, 100%. But no, that's awesome. So, yeah, no, I think those are some great tips. And so, as far as I know, you guys can see all the data, and you guys have all the you have the smart data, you have the mailers, and you guys have all the data from your clients too. If someone's in a market where maybe there's not a lot of opportunity, it's super competitive, or they just don't want to focus on that for one way or another, and they want to go virtual, are there any places you'd recommend that they look at?
Virtual's a beautiful animal. I love talking virtual because it just kind of you open up all the cupboards of what you're able to do, and typically when I start talking virtual, we have to almost reverse engineer it. Is look for the cash buyers
Mm,
and start to build that buyers list up and find out where people are buying properties at, so we can target those areas. And the tertiary cities are phenomenal for call response, but if we don't have anywhere to disposition the property, we can't sell it. So
mm,
we have to find that nice balance between the two. And then inside of those virtual cities, if it's a big city, where's the pocket of good properties and where's the pocket of bad properties that we want to stay away from? So,
mhm.
we have to sit down and kind of analyze that, and it takes a little bit more sometimes boots on the ground, getting a hold of some realtors in the area and saying, hey, making friends in those areas, getting into those Facebook groups and having conversations.
Yeah, 100%. Now, so is there any way, do you guys, I don't know if you guys have it on REI Smart Data, is there a way to see, like, someone identifies a market or virtual market they want to try, to see if there's activity going on there?
Typically, we just kind of go and do some research in the area. We'll go into the zip codes and we can see, we can go and look at how many fix and flip, cash buyers there are in the area. Somebody that's bought a property and then turned around and dispositioned it in less than 180 days. So I
Mhm.
can see who's all flipping in that area. I can look at the competition. And then I can also go in there and look for, say, somebody that's bought 5 or more properties in the last, say, 6 months.
Hmm.
And, and that's going to give me an idea of how many people, how much activity I have in there, but it's also going to give me a pretty good stack of data that I can go skip trace and reach out to them and or send them a letter saying, hey, I'm new to the area. I'm going to be dispositioning properties. I see that you bought this style of house. If I come across any of these, would you be willing to share your contact information so I can share them with you? And so we start to build that cash buyers list up at the same time that we're looking at how much data is in the area to target. I mean, if we go to an area and we're looking for, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath rental, or, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and in certain areas and a certain price point, and we get in there and they're not there, they're way over the price point, or the rental median doesn't match, a 2-to-1 ratio, then it's like, why even look for properties in there if it's not going to match our buy box?
That makes sense. Are there any other red flags that could be like, hey, maybe you should stay away from that market?
Competition.
Hmm.
It's like if you get in there and you start to see somebody, that's pretty big, or the only red flags I tend to throw up is if I already have somebody in the market. I want to be open and honest with my clients and say,
Hmm.
hey, this is somebody I have in there. This is what we're doing in there. If the market provides that it's big enough, but it doesn't do me any good to get 2 clients in the same area right on top of each other and just collect money in the short term from them, because all it's going to do is lower their numbers. I'm not going to look as good, and ultimately they're not going to find as much success, or they're going to have to spend a lot more money to find success because they're both going after similar properties.
Hmm.
So it's just about being upfront and honest with them and say, hey, there's already somebody in there. I've done it with you. I've had the conversation with you. It's like, hey, I know there's somebody in that area already.
Hmm.
And then I've done the same thing with other people with you and said, hey, I know Kai's already doing that right there. So we might avoid that zip code or those couple zip codes and try to work around it. So
Yeah,
that
I think
makes
that's
sense.
huge. It definitely does. Yeah, I feel like, if you can keep it so it's you're not competing against other people, and I mean, there's so many areas, especially when you're going virtual.
Right. Yeah, it just makes sense not to stack people on top of each other that are doing the similar thing. Now, if somebody's in there and they're looking for wholesale deals, and in the low end under 300,000, and then somebody else is in there more of a realtor and an investor, so they're looking for on market deals to take to the market to where their data sets aren't on top of each other. Then it's I still communicate with them, but at the same point we just kind of go, here we go. Here's your data set. They're on their data set. You're not even in the competition for the same properties.
Mm. No, I think that's super important. So yeah, one other thing I want to talk about. I know you guys have some big heavy hitter clients. Spending a lot of money in marketing and doing big teams. What are some of the things that you see those clients, that are doing, lots and lots of deals every month compared to like the new guys? What are they doing differently, as opposed to like a new guy?
Budget.
Hmm.
But at the same point, it's their consistency is their biggest thing, is and they've brought in their team underneath them, and then they delegate very well, and they sit up there a little bit higher from 10, 20, 30,000 feet and kind of watch and match. But it's what we should all do when we think about as we go to scale our business, is hire for what we're not good at, or hire for what we're bad at, and then work on what we're good at. And that's, you might be really good at negotiations and acquisitions and that, but your disposition side, so go hire a disposition, or your lead generation, go hire somebody to take care of that for you. And that's what I see. Most people, if they're really good, is as they scale, they're hiring for their weakness, and bringing them underneath them, or bringing people in underneath them, and then sometimes it's to train them to take in, to take that next step and learn how to be a better, or see how they fit better into their system. So,
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, I think that definitely is a good point for sure.
yeah. But mostly it's, with the bigger you get, of course, the deeper your pockets are and the more consistent you can be in your mail. And then it's watching your KPIs. There's
Hmm.
no sense throwing money out the window if it's not working. We need to pivot and move to what is working and find out what's working properly. and you have, those bigger guys are also able to test more, so they can usually see what's coming a little bit quicker, or they can pivot to that next thing a little bit sooner.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Now, so someone that I kind of went over a bit before, if someone's ready to start, they want to start doing some, marketing. Is there like a certain budget you recommend they start with?
Usually I'm about 1,000 pieces, depending on the market. I don't
Hmm.
like to get too much under that. We have a really good price break. It's about 10 cents a piece. Of course, the more, the better, or the longer our printers run for, the more efficient we are for a job and the more money we can save you. So there's a real good price break at 1,000. Plus, you can get into, pretty niche lists and a few zip codes and really target that to generate that quality response where we're going to find a deal. And but usually on 1,000, if we're getting 10 phone calls, the math I typically go with, or the bell curve, is about 20 to 30 calls. Worst closers are plus 30 calls. Best closers are sub 20. So if we send out 1,000, we get 1%, we got 10 calls. We need to send out either a list of 3,000 total addresses, and we hit 1,000 a month for 3 consecutive months of that list, or we hit that same list and build repetition with that particular homeowner. Both of them work about the same in different markets. I tend to lean a little bit towards hitting the bigger list and touch them each one time you're casting that bigger net.
Hmm. That makes a lot of sense. And then is there like, I don't know if there's like a number, maybe you see some of your other clients are doing, is there like a percent that they put aside, or like to keep the marketing budget going, like off each deal, or?
I use, I tell them to put aside what they can afford to do every month. Is
Mhm.
and it's kind of like, as you get those wins, to take a portion of that to grow your marketing budget. And it might be just something that you add $500 to it, and
Mhm.
it all depends on what your business model is, because not everybody is, when they're getting started, some of them still have their 8 to 5s. Some
Mhm.
of them are full on into this, so they need to take one of those wins and pay for daycare and pay for other things to run their house. So it all depends on what their situation is, and we talk about that inside of our coaching calls of what is, what's a good budget for that area. We break down and analyze their market, the mail piece, what the response is going to be, and what we see this budget creating in that area. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. Well, man, yeah, I think I got some great tips. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with people?
Uh, for us, REI Print Mail, we're simply here for you. It's free coaching. Just give us a call. We all like to generate that conversation, analyze your market, and ultimately we know knowledge is power. So it's kind of how we got started with the free coaching, is we give you all the knowledge we have so you can make better decisions for you. And easiest way to find us is reiprintmail.com. You can get me at scott.reiprintmail.com is my calendar, or scott@reiprintmail.com is my email. Pretty simple.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, no, thanks so much for coming on. I'm super excited to have you guys sponsoring our event next week. Less than a week out now, actually. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm
it's
looking forward to it.
same here. And I know you guys are giving away 1,000 mailers.
Mhm. Yeah, come out and see Kai.
Yeah, no, we're super excited. I know, what did you say? I know our friend Travis did pretty well off getting some free mailers. So
Yeah, I think he won 1,000 and turned it into 20,000.
yeah,
Turned it into $20,000. So
can't beat that return.
that's like finding that lottery ticket on the street corner when you walk into the event, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So,
Oh man, I'm excited to see you next week. And yeah, man, thanks again for coming on.
hey, thanks for having me. I look forward to it. I can't wait